because realistically in performance, it's really never 100% perfect.
Never.
Either. And it doesn't matter. This feels very normal, I have to say, me sitting on Stephanie's couch drinking tea with her. The only weird thing is that there's like extra lights and a microphone and a camera.
All right, well, welcome everybody. We are here today. We're going to be talking about the artistic process or mental process of recording yourself on the harp. And we're not going to be talking about technology, software, recording.
No, we are not audio engineers.
Though sometimes we have to learn these things. Hannah is with me, and she's actually in the process of recording an album at the moment.
Yes, the recording is in the bag, so I've done all the studio work, and we're well into post-production, putting it all together, packaging it up, and getting it ready to put out into the world.
And actually we're in a stage, or she's in a stage, where she's listening back to the takes that she did in the studio.
My least favorite part.
It's also my least favorite part.
It's awful.
And that's actually the inspiration for this video of why I wanted to talk about just how hard it is to listen back and decide what goes on the album.
It's so hard. Let's just say we all are our worst critic.
The first half was really bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we see how bad?
Yeah.
And then situations like this force you to be your own worst critic's critic by deciding setting aside the things that you maybe don't like in general, listening to yourself, and actually deciding like what is objectively not good and what is objectively, the best take.
Or sometimes as the artist, you're thinking which one has the fewest egregious errors.
Yeah, it's not about which one has none, because let's be honest, none of them have none.
We don't have enough money or time.
Yeah. More like the former. As independent musicians, we don't have the luxury of somebody else paying for the studio time where you can be like, oh, I just don't like that. We're just going to redo it because I can go in next week and spend as much time as I want fixing it.
Mm-hmm. Or
those of my friends who have their own home recording studio set up. They probably can do that, which is maybe like a curse and a blessing, because it means that you aren't forced into a hard deadline by budget constraints. You have to like force yourself on a deadline. That's it. We're done messing with this track. We're done doing it over and over again.
That's something I hear from a lot of harpists, or my students at least, who are trying to record themselves at home, because they're not paying money for that time. They just have their camera or their microphone, and they're trying to get a perfect take at home. And sometimes they're like, I did this 20 times, I did this 30 times, and I've certainly recorded myself. I've done 50 takes of a piece.
It doesn't usually get better. Let's be honest.
That's actually true. So that is definitely a tip, that sometimes, especially in the recording studio, one of my first 2 takes is the one that I end up using. You start becoming over analytical as you play.
You start overthinking, and you start like hyper fixating on small details that you maybe weren't so worried about the first couple times through.
And I think that thinking about those things while you're recording really interferes with the music.
Yeah.
It comes across, you're listening back and you're like, this just sounds a little mechanical or careful or boring.
We're working under the assumption that you are like well prepared. If you know the material you're going to track, then you should be okay tracking it a few times and having a good performance in one of those takes. If you don't know the material, that's maybe a different story.
Yeah, I'd say that if you're not able to record yourself, if you're not able to play it through without mistakes or without needing to stop and fix something when the camera's not rolling or the recorder isn't turned on, you're not going to be able to do it with the recorder. It acts kind of like a performance. It's like a person watching you. Everything gets
like
a little bit harder. It's like a
stressful performance where someone's like lurking over your shoulder constantly and it's a microphone.
Yeah.
It is a lot of pressure. Some people maybe can get away recording and they find it
I think if you record yourself a lot, then it just becomes a tool like a metronome.
Yeah.
A lot of people who don't use a metronome I find it very distracting to practice with the metronome. But then later you sort of just turn it on and off, and it's not adding any stress. And I think a recording at home can function that way too. Let's go into some questions that I have for us. My first question is, when you're playing and recording yourself, what are you prioritizing? Recorder is rolling. What are you thinking about?
Yeah. My approach is that you want to capture the best performance. What I mean by that is that you're not necessarily striving for perfection, although perfection is ideal. It needs to have a movement and like a feeling to it that you would have in live performance, and that's really hard to produce in a studio. You don't have the give and take that comes with a live audience. You're just having to play to a soundproof wall with a bunch of microphones pointed at you. The ideal to me is that you're trying to copy that live performance feeling in a recording studio.
I agree 100%. It's so easy to get stuck into all the little details, and I need to make sure I not buzz. Trying to not buzz is the worst thing, I think, because you can actually hear, at least when I'm listening back to my own recordings, I can hear I was trying not to buzz.
Yeah.
The performance feels flat.
Yeah.
There isn't that sense of momentum and flow, and there's not...
You can play something perfectly and have this sense of stagnation.
Yes. I'll just share an example. I was sitting in on some of Hannah's recording sessions at Wild Sound, and I was in the outer room with our recording engineer. We have the same recording engineer for
Steve! We love you,
albums.
Steve.
Yep, we do. And Hannah was back behind 2 soundproof doors recording, and there were back-to-back takes of the same piece where one of them, it gave me chills, literal goosebumps on my arms, and I was tearing up because it was so beautiful. And then the next one, it's kind of like, well, it was nice. There were no mistakes in that one, but it just didn't have that feel of freedom, of movement.
Yeah.
I don't know. And
it's pretty intangible. The magic you want to capture in audio form, because both takes, they weren't necessarily very different from each other.
Yeah, they were both quite
on paper
correct technically.
Yeah, on paper, but there is just something intangible about the performance that really made that take really good. Yeah.
That's pretty.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Yay.
Yay.
A lot of my students record themselves, and the first lesson after they come back, they tell me, it was awful. I'm really a horrible harpist.
I had a student who played at a nursing home a couple of weeks ago, and she texted me the night before, and she was like, oh, I recorded myself playing the songs for the first time like you always tell me to. And oh, it was horrible. I didn't realize how stilted I played. And I was like, don't worry about it. Like, it's okay. They're going to love your performance. The process of recording yourself, whether at home or professionally, it really brings you face to face with your own musicality in ways that really nothing else does, because you have like a very real
mirror.
It's a mirror, and it
but
very much shows you.
It shows you if you don't have the flow, the connection, which I think just because harp is an instrument where you have disconnected sounds and you're trying to make them connected. It's not like a flute or a violin where things literally can be connected.
Yes.
On the harp, we're always trying to achieve that flow. The process of recording yourself can make you like not think about that. Yeah. So your recording is accurately recording yourself, but maybe you don't sound that way when the recording isn't on.
Yeah.
It's possible.
True.
It's possible.
It's very
true. You
true.
have to think about that.
Yeah.
And be gracious
Absolutely.
to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My next question is, when you are listening back to yourself, you've done a recording, you're listening back, what are the deal breakers? that would mean that you're not going to share that recording or use it on your album or post it on YouTube? Mm-hmm. What is like, I will not let the world see this?
Well, if everything falls apart in the middle of it, yeah, that would be a deal breaker. If you have the feeling of the track and there's like a few mistakes here and there, you do multiple takes. You can take out really egregious errors digitally, which is kind of amazing. Even with Harp, with all the resonance, but usually errors in the studio are less obvious. I didn't really dampen those bass strings like I wanted to, so there's a little bit of buzzing in between the chords, or, oh, those ornaments are not perfect. Every single one I don't hear, like with Irish music, like the triplets, like you don't hear all three notes.
Yep.
They're not perfectly executed every time because you're playing a jig really fast or whatever the type of tune might be. And that's when you have to really be strict with yourself and be like, well, that was the best performance of that tune, and so I'm going to go with it. And it's okay that it's not 100% perfect, because realistically in performance, it's really never 100% perfect.
Never.
Either. And it doesn't matter. It does matter more in recording a little.
Because people will listen back to it many times.
Yeah, people hear it over and over. But we'll just say the vibes are more important than the minuscule details. And I just remember we both had the same harp teacher for a while at different times, and Kathy would always say, I don't know if she said this to you, but she always said it to me, that like the people watching you, they don't know the music, they aren't looking at it, they don't know that you're playing things that aren't like
perfect, page perfect,
yeah. For the kind of things that we're recording, not like concertos or something where you need to be.
Yeah, it's not not a classical.
It's not a classical, yeah.
Sonata or whatever.
Yeah. If it's not fully perfect, that's normal, I would say. Like not just okay, but that's normal. It's pretty normal to feel like, oh, that was good enough, and I'm happy putting that out in the world, but could I do it better? And that's where you tell yourself that people will come to your shows and you'll hopefully play it perfectly at the show. And people will love it and they will buy the album.
They will buy the album, yes.
What makes you want to listen to a track over and over again? If you had to describe like what the thing is.
I mean, if it's in a minor key, obviously it gets like extra.
Stephanie loves her minor key. Gregorian chant, A++.
Yes. But I think it is the ability of that track to change my emotional state, to move me. And I don't think that correct notes move me, even if they're really cool notes. Whereas the phrasing or the ability of somebody to start really, really quiet and just keep growing, like Martin Hayes. When he plays fiddle, and he'll have these long tracks, like 9 minutes, 11-minute tracks, and he's starting pianissimo, and it's just kind of growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, and you feel that emotionally.
Yes.
It's very difficult to do that technically.
Yes, you want to feel like a piece of music is like, I personally feel that. You want a piece of music that's taking you on a journey. Like, I want to go on this emotional, mental journey with the piece of music where you're almost in a state, it takes you out of body, like it takes you out of your everyday life and out of your problems and the groceries you need to buy, and you can just enjoy it and stay with this piece of music that is the pinnacle.
That's what
like
music is
good
about.
Track of music, yeah.
When you are listening, if you're recording yourself back and you're thinking, well, there were some mistakes, or maybe I even played a wrong chord, I would say that that's less important. I mean, there are some chords that definitely disqualify the piece. Like, not that one.
But there are a couple chords, even on the album, as I was tracking it, like there are a couple chords that are technically wrong chords. They don't not fit.
But they're not the ones that you had planned.
It's maybe not the really cool chord that I had planned, and it's something more basic. And those are the things that I'm like, it's fine. No one's going to know that I had a really cool ninth interval planned to play there and then I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's valuable to record yourself for practice purposes? I definitely recommend that my students do it. Number one, because if they want to ever record themselves to share, like for a YouTube video or for friends, then you are less scared.
It's also like as close as you can get to practicing for people at home. So it's a good way to kind of practice performing without actually performing and being able to kind of try it as many times as you want or need to.
And I do think it can show you things that you're doing that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
Like you said with your student who recorded herself for the first time and she felt like it wasn't as smooth or flowing as she
Thought it
heard
was.
in her head.
Yeah.
So that can actually help you change things about the way you play. I also find that it's really useful to see like what your head and neck and hands are doing. Like sometimes you'll realize that your hands are going places that they don't need to go, or they're just staying somewhere when really they need to be moving, or that you're playing like that.
Like, ooh, I'm not actually having follow through. My hands are closing, my arms are raising, but they're just doing robot arms
or shoulders.
Yeah.
So it's very good to try it once in a while when there are no stakes, so that you can just look at the recording or else just use it to make yourself nervous. I have a few students who I'd say have really, really high expectations for themselves. High expectations are good, but they can make recording more challenging. And so I've told them to record themselves and then just delete the recording. The whole purpose of it was to make yourself nervous.
You don't even have to watch it. You can just like go through the motions of the practice of it and not have to have the scarring of listening to yourself.
It is traumatic. It's really hard. We've done this.
Recommend you do this and then you go to therapy and you talk about it.
Everyone should go to therapy at some point. A lot of harpists are appalled when they first listen back to a recording of themselves. Unless you are a professional doing this and you have professional quality equipment.
Yes.
If you're recording on your phone, however advanced your phone is, it is just a phone. And so that's going to affect the quality and like the depth of sound that you capture.
Yeah.
A lot of times they come through as really tinny. And then the second one is that when you're listening back on your phone speakers.
Yeah. Put on your
headphones.
Noise canceling headphones, over the ear, whatever nicest pair of headphones you own.
Because that is going to make a huge difference, both of those.
But I did, in the process of recording, Dahi Sproul, the guitarist, who's my musical mentor, played on a couple of the tracks. And he actually, when I sent him the tracks to listen back to that he played on, he intentionally listened to them on his laptop, just out of his MacBook laptop speakers. He was like, well, most people, when they queue up something to listen to, they're not actually rolling out the good speaker. They're just press and play on whatever device they're on. Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin to think about. If you're going to share it with people, like, it's good to know what it sounds like, both in a more like true format on a better speaker and then in a more practical sort of way.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to recommend for people when they're first listening back? What should they be keeping in mind?
Yeah. I think number one, for people recording at home, like, just be like comforted by the fact that most people, when they listen back to recording, their first reaction is, oh, it's
very common to have a negative.
It's very common. Even professionals who have been doing this for decades, like, having a negative reaction to the sound of your own playing is very normal.
Mm-hmm. The other one, and we've talked about this in the studio also, is that time is a great healer. In this stage of the album that you're in right now, where you're listening, I'm saying we because I'm playing on one of the tracks. We're doing a harp duet.
Yes.
I was really pleased that you asked me to play. And so right after we record this, we are going to listen to our tracks of us playing.
There are 10 takes.
10 takes. It's a lot to listen back to.
Take 10 with overdubs, but I think we only liked part of it.
It is hard to be detached and to let go of any like I really wanted it to be like this, but this is what we have, and it's usually different. I didn't listen to my albums for about a year after they were done. Like I did all the listening, I made the hard decisions, I put them into production, I sold them. I knew that I had made the best decisions I could, but I didn't want to listen back to it. And then about a year later, I was able to listen and really think, I like this. This is good. This is good. But it took me a year of just kind of cooling off. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. And you have a renewed appreciation going back to things like little moments or ornaments or variations or chords that you maybe kind of forgot about. And then you go back and you're like, oh, that was pretty nice.
Good job.
You know, good job, past self. You know?
Yeah.
I haven't listened to my albums in a long time, but I did listen to Hallgate House about a year ago, which would have been 2 years after it came out. And I was really happy. I felt quite proud of myself. More proud after the fact than I felt at the time when I released it. At the time when I released it, it was like, well, this is my best. This is the musician I am now. Yeah, time just gives you more perspective.
Whereas I really enjoyed your album, Hallgate House. I've told you this. It's one of the Harp albums that I listen to the most. Like, I don't listen to my own, obviously. But I love listening to Hannah's because I have no emotional, baggage or, worries about anything. It's just, fun harp music.
Yes.
And I think you did a great job.
Yeah. You put so much time and energy and work into it. It's like you kind of have blinders on when you're working on a project. Or I feel like I have blinders on when I'm working at a project, and you look at things in such close detail, and you're obsessed with all the minuscule elements of the music. Later on, you kind of can take the blinders off and have a bit more of a global view of the project. This is a holiday album. And I don't even think about it day to day that this music is Christmas carols.
I do think Christmas is relevant year-round.
It absolutely is.
I have a lot of harp students who will start their Christmas music really early, which I think is great because then you can have it ready to play.
If you want to play in December.
Yeah, so I think musicians also can kind of turn off that sense of time.
Yeah.
Or it's seasonal.
And to be fair, the tracks aren't Holly Jolly Christmas or
They're a little bit more ethereal.
Yes.
Some of them.
Yes.
You have a
some
combination.
of them.
We'll get into that. Let's talk about some more practical things right now. When you are recording, practically, what are things you do?
It depends. Let's just say I'm going into the studio that day.
That's what you've been doing recently.
That's what I've been doing. I like to make sure that I feel like a whole person going into the studio. So most days before I went to the studio, I would get up and go for a run and have some quiet time at home. I do not recommend cramming. This is one thing I don't think is helpful. The day of, you're gonna go record something, you should feel like you know it ahead of time. And last minute practice is okay if you're just running through it once or twice. That's fine. I did that. That's more of a warm up. I wouldn't call it practice. Yeah. It's more of I'm going to play through things and remind myself of the form and everything I want to accomplish in this track. And then go off and be a human before you go into the studio. Do what makes you feel relaxed, I would say. And for me, I can definitely get jitters out by just going for a run and having a bit of alone time.
I was going to ask you, does feeling like a human include caffeine for you?
Yes, but not too much. I actually cut down on my caffeine intake. I like coffee and tea. But I only let myself have 1 cup of coffee in the morning because I have memories of a conducting class I took in college. And this class was at 7:50 in the morning. Not a good time. And so I just remember my professor stopping me in the middle of conducting a piece and being like, how much coffee did you drink this morning, Hannah? And I was like, what? Why? He was like, you just seem a little jittery. You're a bit ahead of the beat. And So I just have flashbacks that he let me restart.
Nice.
Thank you. So I try to moderate it because I do think caffeine, even if you're desensitized, like I maybe am slightly, it still affects you.
Yeah. I've definitely cut down too. I remember, I think it was 10 years ago now when I recorded my Christmas album, I didn't have any caffeine, no coffee. And I always have coffee every morning.
Yeah, me too.
And then the day of the recording, I was specifically not drinking coffee. And I have changed my ways because I felt like it just sucked the joy out of my life. And I wanted to enjoy going to the studio. You know, I'm a professional musician. I should have fun.
You can moderate it without being like a totally puritanical.
Yeah. So now, 1 cup, maybe 2. Because sometimes
I had 1
have
cup
2 to
and then
3.
I had like herbal tea and then I had caffeinated tea in the studio.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend caffeine. It is a legal stimulant.
I don't like running. But I do think that it is important to do something physical so you're not really stiff when you're recording. Even a nice stretch.
And I did do some stretching too, which I really recommend. It's just good to like feel like your body is ready as well as your mind. And I think you can kind of combine the two with whatever kind of pre-recording ritual you feel is right for you.
I do jumping jacks in my house.
Yeah,
just to get warmed up and then play a little bit.
It's also really good to like give yourself a little time to settle in, not be like, oh my gosh, the clock is ticking, I am paying so many dollars. Get settled, feel comfortable, do some sound checking, all that stuff. Rest and enjoy it. It is good to get to work, but have a little.
Yeah, that makes me think of tuning.
Tuning.
The one thing that is worth taking the time
absolutely
to do is to tune your harp, whether you're in a studio or at home. I do think it's okay to just, if you want to just be really spontaneous, you can turn the recorder on and just record a natural performance. But as a harpist listening back, there's nothing that can detract more from a performance, I think, than an out-of-tune harp.
It can be part of your like pre-recording ritual too. I definitely find that like tuning is quite relaxing.
No, I don't.
Oh, really?
No.
Really?
I get so tired of tuning.
Oh, well, I tune all the time, and I do find it incredibly boring. But in the studio, it's kind of like, well, this is all I can do right now is tune my harp.
And it is something that you do all the time.
And it's kind of like a
musician.
comforting habit to me. I find it quite relaxing in the studio.
Maybe I'll try frame it that way next time.
Yeah, frame it as like headspace. It's like a moment to like clear your head. You don't have to like think about anything else. You're just making sure the harp's in tune.
Okay, well, I'll give that a shot. But you have to tune. Like,
I genuinely disagree.
Not
wow.
optional.
Wow. What is this?
Yeah, and then sometimes you listen back and you notice a note is out of tune, and then you're like, do I redo it?
Yeah, like when Stephanie was in the studio with me, her and the recording engineer definitely, you noticed when there was, I couldn't hear it.
Because you were thinking about the music and the flow, and
there were so many things in my mind. I did not hear that note out of tune. And I usually do, like, I have a good ear. Like, my relative pitch is quite good. But in that sense, yeah.
You had so much in your mind. So having people listen back with you is kind of nice, too, because then you get other people's unbiased opinions about pitch or just your general performance. One thing that I said is don't record yourself when you're feeling tired, stressed, or fragile.
Ooh, fragile.
There are some times where you're just having a bad day.
Yeah.
And that's not maybe the best time to...
If you can control it.
I mean, you can't always. Sometimes you just have to
But if you're just recording at home...
I would say that recording is stressful and it takes a long time. Years ago, Steve...
Our sound engineer.
He estimated that it would take about an hour to record 3 minutes of music, which I've found over the years is pretty accurate. And there's some pieces where you just play them and you're like, that was good. I like that take.
Yeah,
we're
take
done.
2, we're done.
Yeah, and there are other ones where you're like, okay, 20 takes in.
I feel like it averages out. Very few tracks are of the latter variety where they take forever and you're still not happy with them. And then
Those are the
sometimes you
exceptions.
have those like magical moments. Those are like the outliers.
If you're feeling just really frustrated, it's like, I don't want to spend an hour doing this. I just want to do one take.
Yes.
That's a dangerous mindset.
Yes. So practical tips, get a good night's sleep.
Mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was really kind of regimented about my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, right, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to sleep 8 hours.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You have to plan for it to take probably longer than you expect, and be okay with that and not just have sort of mounting frustration of why haven't I finished this yet? Well, it's because recording is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So just plan for that.
And you tend to overestimate your abilities to perform under pressure,
mm-hmm.
where you hope and you think it'll be fine, but
sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Right. We've been talking about your album this whole time. You told us a little bit, and I just want to hear the full spiel. What is your album? When can we hear it? Yeah. And where can people buy it?
So my new album is called The Harp and the Holly. It is the festive Christmas album of my dreams.
I'm really looking forward to hearing it. I've heard bits of it in the studio. And it's not just you playing on it.
There's me on every track, playing harp and singing some Christmas carols. There's my friend Dahi Sproul on guitar. There's Stephanie playing harp and just being amazing on one track. There's my friend Nora Rendell, who's a great Irish wooden flute player. There's my friend Maddie Schneider, who's a great cellist on a track. There's my friend Smack Young Walzer, who's a great old-time fiddler on fiddle and clawhammer banjo. And then there's Tabitha and David, who play mandolin and banjo. So
it's a full complement.
It is a full, I sat down and counted up all the instruments, and I was like, whoa, and there's Bob on accordion.
Oh yeah.
That's like 9 people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Nora's singing as well, right?
Nora does sing as well.
And Dahi's singing. You have a whole bunch of people also singing.
There's a lot of singing because I love singing.
Nice.
I just set out to make the Christmas album that I always want to listen to.
Yeah, so if you had to choose a few adjectives to describe it, or your goal for it.
That's a good question. Ethereal is definitely one, especially for the like solo harp tracks. I would say hopeful and joyful. Also like upbeat. I play Irish music for a living most of the time, but this kind of incorporates other folk music styles that I really love onto it. There's a little bit of an old time and a bluegrass flavor, as well as just kind of like old worldy Christmas. In my mind, it all is one cohesive musical journey.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. It's been so fun to put together and to get to collaborate with so many fantastic musicians. Like, I feel honored that everybody said yes.
Where is it going to be for sale?
The album will be for sale on my website, streaming on all the usual streaming platforms. You can purchase the digital tracks on Bandcamp when it comes out at the end of November.
Do you have any closing thoughts? Trying to look over my notes. Did we cover everything?
I think recording is a really valuable exercise. I would like to just say that point blank. Like, it's a valuable exercise even if it's not your job. Or like something you're trying to make money on. Even if you just want to share with your friends and family. It's good for your musicality. It's good for your performance anxiety. And it's really clarifying more than just playing it and then thinking about it afterwards. Like it is that mirror image that can just be really helpful and help you realize things about your playing, things you want to grow in, things you appreciate. All those things, they work together and they help you grow.
I also use it as an arranging device where sometimes I'm just playing on the harp and I'm wanting to get into the groove of the piece and not be always stopping and writing things down or taking notes. And so if I put a recorder on while I'm playing and then listen back later, I can notice those spots that were really cool and I can figure out what I did. I'll just point it at the harp strings so I can literally see what strings. But you could also do that by ear. You can just hear what you did there and reproduce it again later. So recording has all sorts of benefits. It's pretty challenging, but it does get easier.
And it's rewarding to be able to look back and have like a very clear picture of the musician you were when you recorded that.
I was sorting through cassette tapes that I still had. It was an old tape from doing the Minnesota student music evaluations.
Oh yeah, I've got some of those.
And it was me playing Claire de Lune, the Barbara Brundage lever harp version.
Yeah.
It was just so fun to be able to hear, I don't know how old I was, like 14-year-old Stephanie playing this really hard piece, and I'm so much better now. But it wasn't that bad, you know, like at the time I thought I was really bad. And listening back now with however many years in the meantime, it was nice.
It's encouraging, you know, because you do change and grow, and we hope that we all continue to grow as musicians and people through all these experiences.
Well, thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll all go out and buy Hannah's album.
Please do. Thanks for having me.
Please like this video and subscribe to Hannah's channel. See you later. Bye.
My last sip of tea.
So there were parts at the beginning that I thought were really good, actually.
Should I write that down? From like
what take is this?
Take 10. From like 140 onwards. This is what happens when you write really hard harp parts.